SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. Hello. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Hump Day.
Made it to the middle of the week. We have the old hump day. We're all strapped in, ready to go. Enjoyed our time in God's country for me at Ole Miss yesterday, Garland Hall there, just by the tennis courts. Lots of construction going on around campus, which is good to see. That means things are going well, but we enjoyed our time with the folks involved in the Child Advocacy Studies Initiative in the state of Mississippi. Appreciate them having us. It was an all-day affair for Super Talk yesterday. I left, and we still had Rebecca coming in, and then the Sports Talk team as well. That was something. Nick Bain is on at 11:05. He, of course, is a former member of the Mississippi House of Representatives. He's an attorney. He'll give us an update from his patch. He, of course, is from Appalachia, as I like to call it, up there in Corinth. We look forward to that discussion for sure with Nick. And then Dr. Ben Burnett. He's the president of William Carey University. We'll call into MidDays at 12:05. In the meantime, we got a United States representative that is really interesting in that she seems to be more in allegiance to her home nation of Guatemala than the United States of America, serving in the United States House of Representatives. A member of the squad, Representative Delia Ramirez, was at a gathering, America Second, but she put America Second, I should say, at this gathering in Mexico City. I find it kind of interesting she waited till she was out of the country to blabber this, but she essentially declared that she was more proud of her Guatemalan heritage than her American citizenship. Well, we could fix that, couldn't we? Just take your happy butt back to Guatemala. I tell you what, I'll make this offer right now. You fly, I'll buy. I'll buy the ticket, the one-way ticket to transport you back to Guatemala. She was attending the Pan American Congress with fellow members of the House's left-wing squad. She told the crowd, by the way, in Spanish, that she was a proud Guatemalan before I am an American. Please explain how these people get elected to the United States Congress.
Because there's a shocking portion of the population that their IQ is probably about the high temperature today.
That's a shame. I'm afraid
and
you're true.
They're easily led. They're gullible. They're naive. They think with emotion and not with logic. And a lot of them live in La La Land, simply because they can't comprehend reality. It's too big and scary for them.
And there are 435 in the House, 100 in the Senate. There's 535 total. I don't know them all, but I know a fair amount, just as you do, just from tracking all the news and events and so forth and the activity in the nation's capital. This is not a person that I was familiar with, but now everybody is. It's all over the news. I was on Newsmax yesterday. This is one of the things we talked about. And this was in a panel discussion. These are really despicable comments, in my view. And, this, honestly, does this not make the case for ending birthright citizenship, something the president wants to do?
I don't know that it makes the case, because from what I understand about Spanish grammar, they could twist themselves in a pretzel and work it to where she was just putting Guatemala as a part of her heart.
Okay. That could be.
But it's definitely not a good look.
Yeah, at a minimum. Representative Claudia Tenney, she is one I happen to know. She's a New York Republican. She's on the Business Channel a lot. I really like her. From upstate New York, where things are totally different politically. Values are different than downstate in New York City. She said, it's embarrassing that the Democratic Party no longer even pretends to put America first. Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA, said, quote, any person who values any other country over America does not belong in Congress, period. I mean, that's a no-brainer, honestly. Representative Andrew Ogles, a Republican from the state to our north, Tennessee, said on Twitter, denaturalize, deport, and kick her off the Homeland Committee. We know where her allegiances lie. Well, I think that's totally true. Meanwhile, the Democrats, is this rich or what? In Texas, they bolt their home state, talking about members of the Texas legislature. They're not happy about the redistricting. And where do they go? To Illinois. Arguably the most gerrymandered state in the country. That's where they go for asylum, I guess, what you would call it. I don't think this is going to end well for the Democrats. This leaving their posts. The governor, Greg Abbott, said he's going to take all actions within his purview legally against them. I mean, even talked about ejecting them from the legislature there in Texas. There's some law, rules, etc., that he's referenced that gives him the power to do that. This is crazy. I guess, again, I don't think it's any secret, is it, that gerrymandering exists? And there's an interesting story that I read up on a few days ago. I can't recall all the details about where the term came from, and named after a person who came up with this concept, if you will. But I think both parties do that. But, when you're in charge, you're in control because people elect you to be in control. That's one of the benefits of it. It could be abused, no doubt. That's when the courts step in. I kind of question whether or not that should even occur, honestly.
It comes from the name of Governor Elbridge Gerry of Massachusetts, plus salamander, from the supposed similarity between a salamander and the shape of a new voting district on a map drawn when he was in office in 1812.
Yeah. And it's after his name. I mean, that's where it came from.
Yeah,
right?
Jerry, and then Mander for the salamander.
Yeah, got it. Because sometimes you obviously look at these districts and you say, wait a second, that looks like it's configured in the shape that a salamander is capable of. I'm not sure there's another living thing that can, right? But it's it's a weird deal. There ain't no doubt about that. And I don't think it's going to end well for the Democrats, for sure. The president, by the way, just levied some pretty significant tariffs on India. Not happy about India buying Russian oil. He warned them, and they got slapped with a big one. The other one that folks are paying attention to in the business world is tariffs just levied on Switzerland. That, of course, where a lot of watches are produced, including Rolex watches, which are now on the secondary market selling for more than they did when they were new.
It's kind of cooling off a little bit, but yeah, the market for watches has been a roller coaster for about the last decade.
I'm thinking, however, this may spike it again. If you're going to levy tariffs, because that affects the price of new watches, and that usually drags up the price of the secondary market, the used watches as well. So you might be looking at that. But we're stepping aside for a break right now. We are just getting started here in the Element Wealth studio. It's middays, and we shall return. This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Okay, as you know, yesterday, special legislative primary elections were conducted across the great state of Mississippi, held in 7 districts. We got some results for you. In the Republican primary in Senate District 1, the incumbent, Senator Michael McClendon, defeated the challenger, John Stevenson. And then in District 42, in this particular case, the challenger, Don Hartness, defeated the incumbent, Robin Robinson. So without a general election opponent, it's Senator Don Hartness. Don, I think, has run before. I know Don pretty well. He's known as the flag man, by the way. He's a huge supporter of veterans, a veteran himself. And he's always been an outspoken, active proponent of services for our veterans. And there have been cases, Rhino, where if there was critical legislation being debated at the legislature, at the Capitol, that he felt strongly about, he would take it upon himself to hoist a big American flag that he carried on a standard and walk around the Capitol with it, just to call attention to it. So he will be serving next session, starting next session, in the Mississippi State Senate. And then south of us, District 44, Chris Johnson, Senator Johnson, the incumbent, he's been on the program before, defeated the challenger, Patrick Lott. Now, this one will move to a general election. The senator, currently a senator, Chris Johnson, will face Democrat Shakita Taylor in November. Then in the Democratic primaries, Senate District 2, Teresa Isom defeated Robert Walker. That moves to a general election where the Republican, I've met this gentleman before, Republican Charlie Hoots will be her opponent. He didn't have an opponent in the primary. And then in District 11, Abe Hudson, defeated by incumbent Reginald Jackson. to be the nominee for the Democrats in the November general election for District 11. Republican Kendall Lee Pruitt will face Jackson in the general election. District 16, Brady Davis, defeated by Ricky Thompson, the incumbent. So Thompson won re-election in the primary because there is not a general election opponent there. And then Pierre Beard was defeated by Kareem, the incumbent. Kareem won re-election as there, again, is no general election opponent. That's District 41. Then you got some others that are on the general election ballot. There were no primaries. District 19 features the incumbent Kevin Blackwell, the senator from DeSoto County, will square off against Diane Dotson-Black, the Democrat. Anna Rush, the Republican in District 45, takes on Johnny Dupree, the Democrat. So that's just a rundown of yesterday's special legislative elections. That's where we stand. That's what's going on. I sent you some sound there. There are Republicans conducting town halls across the country. Representative Mike Flood, I believe he's from Nebraska, is one such Republican congressman doing so. It looks to me like these town halls are being attended by Democrats. I mean, just based on the fact that I don't see anybody in the crowds speaking that are being featured at the mic, asking questions, commenting to the congressman. Clearly, they're not Republicans. They're blasting him for the big, beautiful bill. And I'm telling you, the fear-mongering around that deal is absolutely insanity. And this that really grinds my gears, this notion that we've gotten to this point, this notion that people of more economic means have just got to pay for everything else. That there's this inextricably linked situation where, okay, we can't have Medicaid because we don't get enough money out of the billionaires. That's insanity. That's crazy. Rather than thank God for the billionaires because they're the ones shouldering the vast majority of the $620 billion Medicaid costs the federal government. It almost feels like it's Christmas morning, right? And you've opened up your gifts, and rather than being happy and excited and enthusiastic about the showering of gifts you received, you dwell on what you didn't get.
Welcome to the mindset of a liberal.
That's exactly what it is. Like, oh, that's great, but what about this? Well, that's what I feel like this is. It's juvenile in that respect. Now, I'm fortunate. I didn't have any kids like that. They knew better. And you would hope that any self-respecting parent is raising them. You're always grateful for gifts, no matter how big or small or whether or not it's what you wanted. If you're not happy about it, take it up outside of the public realm, or certainly not in that situation. But the fact that they should be expressing gratitude. Am I wrong here? I mean, these people, you should be expressing thank you for funding these programs. Thank you. No, it's, oh, we don't get this, we don't get that, we don't get this, and oh, it's all because they get to keep more of their money.
It's the generational brain rot that's only gotten worse since the hippies.
It sure feels like it. But
every successive generation of bleeding heart liberal is dumber and whinier.
Man, it sure seems like it. This Tallarico, the legislator from Texas that held this town hall, I think I sent you that one on Monday. And if you could fire that up, I think it'd be good for the folks to play. But he of course, he's a Democrat populist. And what he's appealing to is this class warfare that all these guys have incited in this country. Here we go.
We fight for the many against the powerful few, whether it's billionaires, whether it's bullies, whether it's bigots. And the more I see what is happening in this state and in this country, the more I think the only minority destroying America is the billionaires. Trans people are 1% of the population. Muslims are 1% of the population. Undocumented people, 1% of the population. We are focused on the wrong 1%. Trans people aren't taking away our health care. Muslims aren't defunding our schools. Immigrants aren't cutting taxes for themselves and their rich friends. It's the billionaires and their puppet politicians. The culture wars are a smokescreen. So many of the divisions in this state and in this country are manufactured by billionaires who want us fighting each other instead of fighting them. They want us looking left and right at our neighbors instead of looking up at them. The biggest divide in our politics is not left versus right, it's top versus bottom.
It's just incredible, isn't it? So the underlying message there is billionaires are taking away your mutilation of genitals. Let's just be honest. That's what he said. That's what he's implying by saying it's not transgenders that took your rah away. Isn't that right? That's what he's basically saying. It's because of these people who have created enormous value for society. And guess what? He's a consumer of what they created that made them wealthy. Virtually all of us are. That's why they're billionaires.
But I doubt anyone in that room acting like he's preaching the gospel can even conceptualize a billion.
Oh, that's absolutely true. So, and then it's not
they have a hard time counting past 10 without taking their shoes off. If they didn't, they wouldn't vote Democrat at this point.
The class warfare that these guys are ginning up is absolutely outrageous. It's radical. It's off the chart. This blaming the most successful financially in society for everything they don't like is ridiculous, insane, misguided. It's stupid is what it is. And I know it requires second-order thinking, as you like to say. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Aruba, Jamaica, ooh, I wanna take you. Bermuda, Bahama, come on, pretty mama. Key Largo, Montego, baby, why don't we go? Jamaica, off the Florida Keys. There's a place called Kokomo. That's where you wanna go to get away from it all. Bodies in the sand, tropical drink melting in your hand. We'll be falling.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. It's Middays. We thank you so much for joining us. So I'm just looking at what you sent me here, and it concerns someone on the Doge team that was assaulted physically. Young man, 23, 24, something like that, I think. And I saw some photos of him. He was beat up pretty bad. Just unprovoked that I could tell. I mean, I just seemed like some bad guys wanted to commit a crime in the nation's capital, of course. And the president said he will take federal control of Washington, D.C. if local leaders don't fix the problem. Quote, if this continues, I am going to exert my powers and federalize, in all caps, this city. You know what bothers me about this? What's the mayor, Muriel Bowser, left-wing loon that had plenty of time and money to paint big block yellow bold letters on one of the major streets in D.C. during the 2020 riot period that was sweeping the country. The big Black Lives Matter, right, in the middle of the street there. She had time, money to do that. Meanwhile, crime out of control all throughout her city. And here's someone that is just doing their job, really benefiting taxpayers, that gets assaulted.
Well, the story that's been reported is he was with a young woman, and some untoward comments were made by the group of thugs towards the young woman. They approached the Doge team member, who's affectionately known by his nickname, Big Balls.
Yep.
Pushed his female friend or girlfriend or date or whoever it was into the vehicle and stood his ground and got jumped.
Because he was trying to defend the young lady, right? We need more people like that, honestly. And so he gets beat up. I don't know what his current medical condition was, but, man, he looked pretty rough.
Last I saw was he was concussed, but nothing past that.
So, and where I was going with this is, has there been any statement from the mayor, chief of police, anybody in law enforcement, Muriel Bowser? They just seem to be indifferent and not focused on the crime that has ravaged their cities. Her city in particular here, the capital city of the nation. Any statements that you can find? I didn't see anything. I did see, after you sent it to me, I do recall I saw the president's Truth Social post about it.
Looks like as of just an hour or two ago, there are reports that 2 teenagers have been arrested in connection with the, quote, attempted carjacking.
Oh, teenagers committing these crimes, engaged in these crimes, which of course tells you that they're just living in an unstable household, likely.
It's not an excuse.
I agree. But
it's an excuse they'll give, but it's not an excuse for that behavior.
And I agree. And the point I'm making here that you and I discussed and I believe agree on is so many children, so many babies are born into these circumstances, and there's a high probability they end up living such a life of crime. Not an excuse. I'm with you. But this dissolution of the nuclear family, I believe, is the root cause of virtually every problem we have. So all these people, by the way, like this representative from Texas, what's his name, Tarantino? I may have mispronounced. Tallarico, okay, yep. So he, of course, is blasting the billionaires as the root cause of the problem, right? And I would argue that the programs that are being reformed, they're really not being cut the way the left describes it. They're being reformed to ensure that the funds are spent efficiently and appropriately and properly, that much of those programs wouldn't be needed if we didn't have kids like this who are destined to be leeches off the government. They're teenagers now living this life of crime, and it could be the way they leech off the government is we got to take care of them in jail. You never hear the Democrats talk about that. Why don't they get out in front of this to constituents and say, hey, guys, quit having babies when you're 14.
Because that makes the talking heads in mainstream media uncomfortable to question their masters.
Well, it's the dang truth. There's no doubt. And we've seen it's a problem in this state in a big way. The out-of-wedlock births, I know our friend Gary from the Berg likes to talk about it all the time, and he's right, and I don't disagree with him. Teenage pregnancy, out-of-wedlock births, the fact that 57% of the births in this state are funded by Medicaid, which means you're dealing with an impoverished mother that really is not in a position to have a child. And I'm not for the government dictating who can have babies. I'm not suggesting that whatsoever before people get crazy on that, like China and Japan did. That was law. Punishable law. Some cases, the punishment was, sorry, we're aborting your baby, right? You've exceeded your quota. Widespread. Now they're begging them to have babies because they're running out of people. In this country, we need the birth rate to increase among parents that will create and grow a nuclear family and are in a position to raise a child. And this may be a hard pill to swallow, and it may sound somewhat condescending on my part. It's not intended to, but Rhino, generally speaking, if your income is such that you qualify for Medicaid as a pregnant mother, you probably are going to struggle taking care of that child. And like it or not, money and economics cause the majority of these problems. They just do. That's not a statement in favor of worshiping money. It's just dealing with reality. And so they say, well, no big deal. The government will take care of me. Like this rep said, and like all the Democrats are saying, we can't have nothing nice because of the billionaires. What? It's the billionaires that are funding most of this stupid train we got going. They don't get that.
Nope.
How much do you want of what they have legitimately, lawfully earned?
All of it.
Right. Which is never enough, of course. And now I'm seeing, I caught one of these reels where one of them is showing the marginal tax rate at the top level going back like to the 40s. I'm so tired of that stupid argument. Look, it was 90%. Of course, nobody paid that.
Because the only people in those tax brackets could afford to pay congressmen to carve out loopholes, actual loopholes.
And the tax code was way more riddled, to your point. I've done the research on this, by the way. I just got curious about it a few years ago. With crazy tax loopholes, when the tax rate was 90% than it is now at 36. Right? That's the absolute God's honest truth right there.
Yeah, it came just short of naming individuals and their properties as being tax exempt.
That's exactly right. That's totally right.
Like if you put certain criteria in place that only match 3 places in the whole country, and those 3 are all owned by the same person, you basically gave that person a tax break with an act of Congress.
That's absolutely right. And the other thing is, of course, when you got...
And that's what the Dems try to act like Republicans do on a daily basis.
You're totally right on that.
Because their voters will lap it up and not question it because they haven't had a critical thought since they turned 18.
They were...
And likely before then.
They were the inventors of the loopholes. The very thing, you're so right about that. It's the ultimate projection. They're the ones that did it. They invented the whole concept. But here's the other point that I don't think they could get with the second order thinking requirement here. Nobody could get to that level as well because of that level. You know exactly what I'm saying here. You've made the taxes so onerous, so imposing, so burdensome. Nobody's motivated to get to that level. You get to keep more of your money. All kinds of good stuff happens, and that's what we're all enjoying today. They don't get it. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Think for a moment.
Days with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio. Amanda from Pike County on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. It's open. Says, if they're undocumented, how do they know it's only 1%?
It's way higher than 1%
There's
of
no
legal
doubt about
immigrants in this
that.
country.
Look, this is what is something that would probably be a head-scratcher to them, is the goal should be for more people to become billionaires. I know that's probably not practical, but we reported to you a few weeks ago that 2024, even with Biden in office, of course, his agenda largely on ice after the midterms swung control of the House to the Republicans. And that's what happens a lot. President really just can't get a lot done. But nonetheless, last year, 1,000 new millionaires made a day in this country. A record, by far. No year ever came close to that. More than all the other Western nations put together. I think that's an example of the opportunity that abounds. And all this nonsense about the middle class being destroyed and all that crap, you again, second order thinking, you got to do some research. The middle class has shrunk primarily because people have moved out of the middle class up into higher income. That's just because of the massive amount of opportunity. Here's a real-world example. You guys may have seen this out in the news. Mark Zuckerberg, CEO, founder of Facebook, no secret they're making huge investments in artificial intelligence. In particular, they've launched a super intelligence lab. So that's beyond just throwing a prompt at one of the current generational AI tools and it producing some content for you. I think most people are fairly familiar with that. That's rather rudimentary.
Well, I mean, the concept of superintelligence is still just that, a concept.
It's a concept.
It's an aspiration.
We're a way away from it. But might we get there? Is there promise and prospect? Yeah, I think so. Now, what the time frame looks like, it's anybody's guess. Nonetheless, it's certainly the prerogative of Zuckerberg as the CEO of Meta with, I'm sure, discussions with his board. It's a public company. What he's doing here, this kind of new line of business. Well, he's out there recruiting top flight talent for this new superintelligence lab, looking for mainly for AI researchers. So he offered 24-year-old Matt Dietke. I think I pronounced it correctly. He offered him $125 million. What about that as a job offer? $125 million, you're 24. And I love it. This is capitalism on full display here. Dietke sits on it. Imagine that, sitting on a $125 million offer. He ended up getting $265. They sweetened the deal, as we say, to $265. I think this is fantastic. I love this. 24. So, should government interfere with that? Hell no. Zero interference. Let him do it. His board says it's okay. He's got a vision, a strategy. You know he's presented that to the board. And guess what? The market ultimately will either reward or punish him. Remember the crazy virtual reality experiment he did and how the stock tanked?
He renamed his whole company after it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The metaverse and all that crap with all the tokens and stuff didn't go so well. That's part of business. You have an idea, you think it'll work, it doesn't. Even smart people like this that have paid a bunch of people to do a bunch of research and market testing didn't work out.
And on the upper end of the estimates, he lost anywhere between $60 and $70 billion on that venture.
Yep.
So at 265, was that what dude got?
$265 million.
Yeah, $265 million risk is
Pocket
much
change.
smaller than $70 billion.
But since then, though, what has Meta done stock-wise? Zip! We just shared it with you last week. I think they reported all lines of business revenues up, and so you can't really doubt that Zuckerberg has a clue what he's doing. He's built an incredibly valuable company, and now he is expanding into this superintelligence lab initiative, and he's out there recruiting people. So here's the deal, folks. You want to make $265 million? You just need to be a smart superintelligence researcher. Would you have imagined that such would even be possible 2 years ago, much less 15, 20, that you'd have offers for employees at $265 million? Where's the left's outrage on this, by the way?
Oh, I'm sure they're just trying to get their talking points in order so that they can all be on the same page of stupidity.
Well, next thing they'll be saying, he needs to pay for Medicaid, right? That's their approach to everything. We're coming right back. Stay with us. Hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays. We are in the Element Wealth studio on this
Hump Day.
We welcome now Nick Bain. He's an attorney and a former member of the Mississippi House of Representatives. Hey, Nick, good to see you.
Hey, Gerard. Thanks for having me. How are y'all today?
We're doing fantastic. All right. We, of course, are accustomed to you to visiting with you when you were in the legislature, and we've talked a couple of times since then. But tell us what you've been doing lately.
Well, a little bit of everything, practicing law and doing a little bit of government relations stuff. And like you, I sit on a number of task force and boards for different stuff around the state. So just staying busy and continuing to try to serve the great people of Mississippi and to move our state forward. And I look forward for that and enjoy doing that. So and aside from that, chasing kids around and doing what I can in that regard.
So we've had a lot going on in politics, I think, since the last time you and I talked. Let's start at the federal level. You have any particular thoughts about what has been going on since the president was elected and took office in January?
Yeah, Gerard, great question. And like you, I go all over the state and visit with different groups. And I can remember going last August and September, and there was this heaviness in the air among conservative groups, Republican groups, just a worry about the way our country was going to go. And then after the election, and speaking now, there's just this new, I would say, revival. This new, people have this exuberance, this where they feel like they're invested again. They're confident about what's going on, and people are proud to stand up and say, we're Americans. And I credit that to President Trump and his American First philosophy and other stuff that he does. Honestly, the difference between speaking to groups last summer and this summer is palpable. People are just excited the way the things are going. So
yeah, the state level, some things have happened that you worked on somewhat when you were, of course, in the House, in the legislature. We got new Speaker Jason White. I know you served with him, know him well. I think he would point to elimination of the income tax and the big tax reform bill that passed in this past session, the 2025 session, as a key achievement. And now he tells us that education freedom, getting some legislation along those lines, is his top priority in the 26th session. Your thoughts, Nick?
Yeah, to your point on income tax, you may remember I sat on a special committee that was appointed by Philip Gunn when he was Speaker. You came and testified to us in that hearing about the need for the income tax, and I think it's a game changer. I live 3 miles from the state of Tennessee. Uh, people oftentimes will live in Tennessee, work in Mississippi, whatever, because of that income tax, and we lose a lot of my young people up to Nashville, Memphis, whatever the case may be. I think eliminating the income tax is a generational action by our legislature, and I commend the speaker for doing that, and for making that decision. As far as school choice, you're absolutely 100% right. He has made that an agenda item for him. It is something that he has wanted, really, I think, since he began his speakership. I know, and then I know he worked on it when he was pro temp and a member as well. So I see that moving. The elephant in the room, I guess, is what is the Senate going to have? I don't know that the lieutenant governor has spoken on it. If he has, I've missed that. But certainly, I think that's going to be where we're looking at. I think the House has the votes on it, and the question is going to be, what does the Senate do?
Yeah, and in fact, just to update you there, we have talked to the lieutenant governor about it on this program, and in fact discussed it last week at the fair, at the Neshoba County Fair. He came on, and he hasn't really wavered a great deal. He seems to indicate some degree of support for a public-to-public open enrollment transfer scenario for students that are attending a failing school or a failing district, and he said both, so I'm not exactly sure, because there's a difference between a failing district and a failing school within a district,
right?
For districts that have multiple schools, for sure. And if it's at the district level, we have like 3 or 2 failing districts now, according to the grades issued by the Department of Education. But anything beyond that, he doesn't seem to support. And so it would seem like it's an uphill battle.
Yeah, well, Gerard, look, I mean, it has been called the Mississippi Miracle, and I believe that's a real thing. I mean, I came in the legislature in 2012 and have seen the changes of where the education has come in Mississippi. I was a part of the third grade reading gate, which I think is one of the most monumental things we did in education, was to pass that. So we've gotten innovative about it, and I think Mississippians have started to see the results of what we did then and what is being done now.
Yeah. Well, I think that's right. I'm not sure. I'm kind of in alignment with you on this respect. In this respect, I think we'll get legislation out of the House. I'm just not sure it goes very far in the Senate. And it's more, as you know, than just the lieutenant governor that opposes any sort of robust school choice legislation. There are some Republican senators as well that have concerns, and they don't shy away from that. They've expressed their concerns. There are a few in the House as well, but not enough to offset the number who support it. Especially,
no, I agree with
yeah.
I agree with you 100%. And public education for a long time. I'm a product of public education. My wife's a public school teacher. My kids go to public schools. It's we're entrenched in that in Mississippi. But I also feel that there is always room for improvement. There's always some type of middle ground that people can come to. So, I'll probably be working on that issue come January, and I look forward to talking about it.
Yeah. And then we've also got the public employees retirement system, something I've certainly discussed quite a bit. And the legislature did take a little action this year, creating a new tier, but that, as you know, stops short of the total amount of reforms needed to stabilize the program. But the Speaker has created a study committee around that this summer during the off season of their legislative responsibilities. But I think that's going to get a lot of discussion next year. What do you think?
I think so too, and there are so many people that it impacts and so many people that it involves. I just saw before I got on air with you, but I didn't have a chance to read it, that Peer put out a new report on PERS, and put out some and made some new recommendations. I'm sorry I didn't read it to tell you that, but so I will leave here and do that. They recommended. They did say something about the changes were good, but they wanted something further. So it'll be interesting. But like to your point, Gerard, that's a big political football for every member of the legislature, and and for the public at large. That's probably the largest. I would venture to say the largest pension program in the state. So it impacts a whole lot of people.
I think that's totally right. Of course, we have the same problems with Social Security, and Medicare is even worse at the federal level. Recent reports from the trustees there are that those programs are going to be insolvent sooner than thought. And so that's a big task for our Congress, and they don't even talk about it. And we're talking a short, 7 years away. Medicare says it can't meet its obligations. In the next term, this, somebody's going to be dealing with a big old problem. And the same is true here in PERS. It's not in as desperate shape as those federal programs are. But, the longer we delay action, the more severe the action has to be. It's just the way the math works.
Yeah, that's right. And politicians are bad about putting things down the road. That's about, and the legislature bad about punting things. But there comes a time when you do have to pay the bill on the credit card.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting to that point.
Yeah. Can you hang around for another segment? We got about a minute left in this one, but if you can stick around, we can keep talking.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
happy to.
All right. So in the next session, we've talked school choice. We've talked PERS. We got a break right now, but on the other side, think about what else you feel like the legislature is going to focus on. And the other thing we want to ask you about is whether or not you have any future political plans as well that you might want to share with us. We got Nick.
All right, happy to do so, George.
Sounds good. We got Nick Bain on the line with us. It's Middays from the Element Well studio. Coming right back.
Hello.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
We are back in the Element Well studio. We're visiting with Nick Bain, an attorney and former member of the Mississippi House of Representatives. So when we went to break, Nick, we were talking about what you think may also be on the agenda in the 2026 legislative session. Again, we've heard the speaker lay out his priorities, and he put education freedom at the top of that list. He's got a task force around revitalization of the capital city of Jackson, voting rights, and then PERS as well. I haven't really heard a lot from a specific agenda perspective from the lieutenant governor and the Senate. But what do you hear and what do you think we're likely to see in 26?
Yeah, I think some of those issues, voting rights has been something that's been a concern, and looking at restoring people. As you know, criminal justice reform was always something that I worked on and have continued to do so with Empower Mississippi and some other groups. I commend the speaker for looking at voting rights and helping people who have done their time, who have paid their debt to society and not been in trouble anymore, or have started to contribute to society, returning that dignity of voting back to them. I think certainly you may see something there. Gerard, I caught the tail end of the segment before me, and you were talking about immigration.
Yeah.
To me, that's one of the biggest. To me, that's one of the biggest issues that our country faces. Now, I don't think there's not a whole lot you can do at the state level. I get that, but there are some things that we can chip away on. When I was chairman, there was a fentanyl. There still is a fentanyl issue. I believe fentanyl is coming across the border even as we speak now, and there's some reports saying that it's the largest killer between ages 18 and 45. The state can do stuff about that. We did something when I was there. We passed a law about Parker's Law, which was Parker Rodenbaugh was a kid that was at Mississippi State, and he took a pill and ended up dying. For example, we passed that law, and last week was the first time that it was used as a prosecution and conviction down on the coast or down in Lamar County with Judge Brad Touchstone. Those are situations that I think, even though illegal immigration may not be something that the state can fully take on, they can look at issues to chip away at that. And I hope that those are things that come up in 26 that have to do with your drugs, your illegal immigration. That to me, that dovetails into a lot of issues, human trafficking, even healthcare issues. You talk about how much we spend on illegal immigration with healthcare, with an MDOC. So that's an issue that I think we can look at on a collateral aspect as a state as well. And I think you'll see that. Parker, that law passed, and this is what I would say to your listeners, to you and your listeners especially. That law passed because somebody came to me and talked to me about it. It was a citizen advocacy that came to it. And I would tell you listeners, say, look, talk to your legislators. Talk to your representatives, talk to your senators if you have those issues. Believe it or not, Gerard, legislators don't know everything. And they depend on people to tell them things. And sometimes you get legislation like that comes out and ends up making Mississippi better and protecting lives. So to your question, I think you're going to see a lot of school choice, a lot of PERS, and a lot of other issues. I hope that there are some things that look at a broader perspective, like those illegal immigration and human trafficking and stuff such as that. But in any event, I look forward to the 26th session.
Yeah. The lieutenant governor last week, he laid out a very positive view of the state's financial condition, and I think he's largely right. One of the things he proposed on the show, and I don't know that I've heard it before then, was a tax rebate. I think he said carve out $316 million is the figure that I seem to recall, and send that out to taxpayers. Rebate computed as 15% of their state income tax liability for the year 2023. So if you pay $10,000 in state income taxes, you get a check for $1,500. Was his proposal. First, what do you think about that, Nick? And second, the first thing that came to my mind is, well, that would exclude a lot of people in the state because our tax reform that was done even previously to the bill that just passed, honestly, it eliminated a lot of people off the tax roll. So we have a lot of people that don't pay any income taxes in the state of Mississippi, but they pay significant sales taxes, which is more revenue than income taxes. They would be excluded from this rebate. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and Gerard, my thoughts are the same as yours. It excludes. That's the first thing I thought of. It excludes a whole lot of people in Mississippi. I'm of the train of thought the best way to give people their money back is to keep taxes low.
Yeah.
And to not take it from them to begin with. So, if that's the case and these checks get put in the mail, so be it. But I'm always going to favor the side of not taking the money to begin with.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I'm for it. I'm all for taking it out of the bank account and rather than the government sitting on it and sending it back to the people who paid in. And really, my analysis was more about that as a difficulty, a challenge to getting some sort of legislation like that passed.
Yeah, I agree, and there's a logistics problem. There's a lot of bureaucracy, as we know. So the easiest way to give people their money back is not to take it.
I'm with you, and it looks like we're on our way to achieving that. Going to be phased in over time, but it gets better every year, so we take less every year. Still have another year remaining of the tax reform. I believe that passed when you were in the legislature, right? Under Speaker of the House Philip Gunn. Yeah, so phasing out the 4% and then reducing the 5 down to 4. We're in year 2 of that. Calendar year 26 will be at 4%. It'll terminate, and then the new law kicks in, and we start reducing it even further. So your personal future and political plans, anything you want to share with us on that front today?
You know, Gerard, I mentioned I've been all over the state for the last 12 months, really, talking to people. And people have asked me to get back in it from the coast, from up here to the hills of North Mississippi. People have asked me to consider whether that's in the legislature, whether getting back in the legislature, or to something more. So I will tell you, unlike you and I share a desire to serve Mississippi. We serve a desire to make Mississippi better. And I have that desire to continue to look at political options. I have an immense fire in my belly at this point to serve the people of Mississippi, and I'm going to continue to look at those options. And I feel as though, you know, I've made it public that I intend on being on the ballot in 2027. I am not ready at this point to announce what that is, but I do intend on being on there. And when I do, I will certainly call Gerard Gibert up and tell you.
Gotcha.
But you know, we have done a lot of stuff. I have a website, Bain for Mississippi. I encourage people to go and look at that. That's Bain, BAIN for Mississippi. It tells a little bit about who I am. And if anybody wants to reach out, we have contacts on that. Like I said before, the strongest thing we can do as citizens is talk to those people who are in political office and those seeking political office. And I make that perfectly clear. And anybody who wants to reach out to me, they can by that website, Bain for Mississippi. Again, Gerard, thank you for having me on. I certainly, like I said, have a desire to serve, and will continue to do so in some capacity because I love Mississippi, I love her people, and I want to see it prosper for generations to come.
Yeah, sure. Well, of course, we're pleased to have you on today, and you're right. I'd seen you and I'd heard you say that you intended to be on the ballot, but you stopped short of divulging any particular office. My guess is you're still thinking about what that office might be. And I don't want to speak on your behalf. That's just kind of my observation.
I understand, and thank you, Gerard, for that. Life doesn't happen in a vacuum. There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Nick Bain, he's an attorney and former member of the Mississippi House of Representatives, and sounds like he'll be on your ballot potentially in 2027. Appreciate you coming on, Nick. Thanks a lot.
All right. Gerard, thank you. Appreciate you.
You bet. We're coming right back in the Element Well studio. Stepping aside for a break right now, it's Dr. Ben Burnett. He's the president of William Carey University at 12:05.
This is
Ready here.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Well, you know you make me wanna kick my heels up and throw my hands up and throw my head back and come on now. Don't forget to say you will. Don't forget to say yeah. Say you will. Say it right.
Okay, so that's the Isley Brothers, right? That, of course, was made popular in Animal House by Otis Day and the Knights. When the fraternity boys went on a road trip. I did one of those back when you could do that sort of stuff. Road trip And it was, of course, we didn't get initiated. You spent the whole fall semester as a pledge, came back, if you made your grades, you qualified for initiation. And that occurred, I think, in either late January, early February. But they would divide us into groups and send us on trips. That's where it came from, that you saw in the movie. That was still going on in the 70s when I was a pledge. And you'd go visit a chapter is what you do. And they send you with a list of items to bring back. So you'd meet at the house Friday afternoon, 4 o'clock, get in your cars, go to your respective chapters, go fetch the things you had to get from your list.
Perform whatever tasks were required to receive the object, yeah.
That's right. And then report back to the house like 10 o'clock Sunday night, which when you're a college kid, that's no big deal, right? With your haul, right? And have to go down and present that. So 4 in my group, and that's part of the problem today. The things are so big. The pledge classes are 120, 140. You couldn't do that. My pledge class was like 40. It wasn't that big. But they sent us to SMU, chapter of my fraternity at SMU. So that's a pretty decent drive. A lot of them went, I think Oklahoma, somebody went there, but Auburn, Alabama, LSU, Tennessee, close ones. We went to SMU, and we literally showed up about 11, 12 o'clock, midnight at the house on the campus of SMU. And one of the things that we had to go get was a signature from Libby of the Libby's on the Label fame. I don't know if folks remember that brand of food products, Libby's, from the Hunt Company, because H.L. Hunt, Lamar Hunt were famous members of my fraternity. Is it Lamar that owned the Kansas City Chiefs? I believe they were very successful individuals. So they lived in, what's that real ritzy place, neighborhood in Dallas. Things weren't all marked off, by security and stuff. Highland Park, I think's the name of it. We had to figure out. This was before GPS and Google, where he lived, and literally went and knocked on the door, and the servants answered the door in the middle of a Saturday, and she was there, his daughter. That's who the brand Libby was named after. And I know I'm digressing into some crazy trivia, but she signed it for sure. We came back. That was like a prized possession. I think it was just like a piece of notebook paper or something. And, of course, how did you authenticate that? You couldn't. And you couldn't take pictures because we didn't have cameras back then. Just kind of had to take our word for it. But what a blast that was. So this house, though, on the SMU campus for my fraternity was gigantic, and it was way better than any house I'd ever seen. And relative to the number in the fraternity especially, like everybody had their own private suite, well, the money for that particular house came from none other than Texas Senator John Tower. You should go look him up. So Tower, I want to say, was majority or a minority leader back in that era. I mean, he was an extremely powerful senator, John Tower, and was may have been an oil guy as well, was a wealthy guy. So he provided the funding for that house, which was incredible. Oh, well, a lot of fun. Just thinking about Otis Day and the Knights there. So on the C Spire text line about Nick Bain, this individual says, on a national level, term limits is a major need. 2 6-year terms, then go home. Also, you aren't all to make more than the median income in your district. You don't think they need term limits? Ask Mr. Bain his opinion on term limits. So I'll tell you, I sent him a text. I don't know. I do know that there are some people that would fashion themselves, Rhino, as conservatives that do not support term limits. One in particular that I have had a discussion with on social media about is Senator Angela Hill. Now, Angela Hill is a great senator from Southwest Mississippi that I would say is as conservative as anyone in the legislature. But she says she feels like that experience is needed, that when you open up a seat, you get someone that's inexperienced as a legislator in office. They can they're subject to influence by lobbyists more so than experienced legislators. And how this came about is just a discussion I think is worth having, and I know people may not agree with this on the term limit issue, of course. I wrote an op-ed several years ago. Alan West, remember him? Used to serve in the Congress for the state of Texas, and he's part of the Convention of States movement in the country. And the Convention of States movement has two primary issues. And the way the Convention of States process works, you can't just have a convention and talk about everything. You got to have a stated purpose, and it's got to be limited. I don't remember all the rules, but you can't just have a big convention and say, hey, we're going to just do all this stuff in the country. And the two issues that the convention's focused on are those who are involved in trying to put together a convention are term limits and a balanced budget. I wrote an op-ed on that, published in the Clarion Ledger at the behest of Alan West's group. I can't remember the year, 2017, something like that. And our legislature has to vote to join the Convention of States. That's the way the process works. Just so you know, our legislature voted to join on the balanced budget amendment issue, did not on the term limits issue. So that, I think, tells you a lot as far as where our members of our legislature, at least at that point in time, stand on the idea of term limits. He said, also, Nick was kind enough to text back. He says, I support term limits for the Congress. Legislature is a little more nuanced. So there you go. There's the answer on that. Appreciate that, Nick. Let's see. Gave back. If they didn't pay in, they shouldn't get back on the ceasefire text line. I know that's in reference to the tax rebate proposed by the lieutenant governor. My point is, and I said this the other day, everybody pays sales taxes. Sales taxes account for more revenue to the state than income taxes. 38% of our revenue, in fact, comes from sales taxes. 28% comes from personal income taxes. Then you got corporate income taxes, use taxes, insurance premium tax, and then everything else, because those 4-5 categories I just cited account for about 85 to 90% of total revenue. So that's all I'm saying, is that it gets a little complicated in that people do pay sales taxes. In the state of Mississippi, like most states, sales taxes comprise the majority of the income in the state to the general fund. Goes straight to the general fund. That's after the diversion that goes back to cities. Still accounts for 38%. The longer, Mike in Gulfport, the longer politicians are in D.C., the more they become enmeshed with doing favors and getting perks from lobbyists. Term limits will slow that. Perhaps. I guess the question I would ask, Mike, why do the voters keep sending people back? Why are we not term limiting people, members of Congress, legislature, wherever you think we need term limits? Why aren't we doing that at the ballot box? It seems like that a prevailing attitude may be, Rhino, that, well, I'm for term limiting your guy or gal, just not mine. I like mine, right? So when it comes to spending, I've said this countless times on the show. Oh, yeah, we need to cut that spending. Oh, but that money that's coming my way, oh, you got to keep doing that. Well, you multiply that by the 535 in the Congress, and that equals $37 trillion of debt. Because everybody's got a sacred cow. Everybody can justify why that spending needs to come to me, just not to you. Well, just think about that. Everybody's saying the same thing. And of course, many people, they applaud their congressman or woman or senator for going to Washington and bringing home that bacon. It's the bringing home that bacon that plunged us into debt to the tune of $37 trillion. When 46 cents of every dollar that comes out of Washington is borrowed. 46 cents. And our government is involved into a provider of pensions and health insurance, more so than anything else. from a program's perspective. That's excluding the interest we pay on the debt, which is headed for $1 trillion this year. Eddie Money bumping us out of this segment. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Polyumpa, Mississippi.
It's so awesome! Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. Thomas and Greenwood wants to require contractors who provide services for the state to use E-Verify. I'm actually not convinced that E-Verify is accurate. It's better than nothing, but I'm not convinced that that's necessarily foolproof. I guess I would say it that way. He also says we can't ignore the obvious obstacle to school choice in Madison County, the prospect of filthy peasant children from Hines and Canton invading their sanctuary schools is unacceptable. The property value argument in parentheses. Same goes for district consolidation. It's naive of us to just blame Delbert. He wasn't a convenient scapegoat. If he wasn't a convenient scapegoat, there'd be more transparency into the underlying issues. You're wrong about that, Thomas. I'm from Madison County. I have made it clear that there are folks who represent Madison County who oppose choice. There are folks who represent it that support it. But it's Madison County doesn't have the sway in the legislature, in the Senate, that's keeping school choice from being enacted in the state. There's more to it than just Madison County, I can assure you. I have talked to them privately. They won't talk publicly, and as I've said so many times, and I hate to beat this horse to death, but the Senate Education Chairman, Dennis DeBar, who will not come on the program despite numerous requests from our content director. And I don't mean just this year. I mean over a series of years. He pocket vetoes any legislation, right, that comes into his committee concerning school choice. Doesn't even get off the ground. So it's more than just the lieutenant governor. It's more than Madison County.
But the buck stops with Delbert.
I agree.
Because he keeps putting DeBar in the position of power to do that.
I agree. And honestly, when it was Speaker of the House Philip Gunn, it was Richard Bennett, the education chairman in the House, also anti-school choice member of the House. Same deal. When that situation changed leadership with Speaker of the House Jason White assuming that role, we got some traction in the House because we couldn't get it through the House, honestly, with the former speaker. So, and you can see why. He comes from a family of public school teachers, I believe. He's from Clinton, a great school district in Hines County, adjacent to a poor-performing district in the city of Jackson. So I've said before, I think this whole thing is about race. I still believe that. That's largely where the objections come from, but it's not just limited to one county. That happens to be a rather shining example, mainly because of the way Madison County is just bifurcated. It's an unusual county in that respect. You don't have many boards of supervisors, for example, across the state that have the party split among the supervisors. And that's what we have in Madison. We've got a Democratic northern part of the county and a Republican southern part of the county. So that's kind of where we are on that. What is he running for? Referring to Nick Bain, who was on with us earlier. And so all he said was that he intended to be on the ballot in 2027. That honestly was not news. He has stated that prior. At this point, he's not disclosed any particular office. He just said he'll be on the ballot. He said it could be the legislature, could be something else. So we'll have to wait and see for him to make an announcement. How about restricting junk food on food stamps? Well, you saw that several states, this is on the C Spire text line, John in Pontotoc. Thanks for reminding me of that, John. I couldn't get to it yesterday. We were in a remote. I had it in my notes to discuss, but several states have requested and received waivers. That program is part of the Department of Agriculture, Secretary Brooke Rollins, and she has signed off on waivers for several states, Mississippi not among them, who have requested that certain junk foods be excluded from eligibility for food stamps. I think this is good policy, and I'd like to see the state of Mississippi pursue a waiver for the same. I am concerned about the reforms to the SNAP program in the big, beautiful bill that likely will require the state of Mississippi to kick in more costs from the state's general fund to pay what really amount to penalties from the federal government's perspective based on the error rate. And I think we sit at an error rate of north of 10%. That's the highest range. There are 3 different ranges of error rates. Each one of them is associated with a percentage of the SNAP benefits provided by the state, in the state, that the state would have to cover. So if we don't fix the error rate, we're going to be on the hook for 15% of the program, which means more state spending. Coming right back after Fox News and SuperTalk News with Dr. Ben Burnett, president of William Carey.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is hour 3, the afternoon portion of Middays. We're now live from the Element Wealth studio on this
Hump Day.
We're pleased to welcome now Dr. Ben Burnett. He's the president of William Carey University. Dr. Burnett, always good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Good to see you too, Gerard. Thanks for letting me join remotely like this. And don't worry, I am not driving. Someone else is, but I'm about halfway between McGee and Hattiesburg. So,
I got you.
Glad to be on. Love your show.
Appreciate that. Thank you for coming on. So we wanted to visit with you about this new partnership you guys have launched with a company that's not far from the university's location. That's the Howard Technology Solutions. Tell us what's going on there.
Yeah, not far at all. And we pride ourselves on forming partnerships, local businesses, healthcare places, community colleges, high schools, anywhere that we can give our students a better edge to be successful and to serve Mississippi when they graduate. And Howard Industries was just a natural fit. You know, they're only really probably 15 or 20 minutes down I-59 from us. And as you may know, they employ thousands, literally, of Mississippians.
Yeah.
So this partnership, and the only bad thing about it is I'm just disappointed we didn't think about it and pursue it any earlier. But we're glad to do it now. Made a connection with Michael Howard, their CEO, David Perkins, their Chief Operating Officer, a good friend of mine. And this partnership is going to allow several different avenues of support. Number one, we're going to be able to educate their employees through certificate programs and through classes that we're about to create as well. But for our current students, it's going to allow a pipeline of a place where they can go work. because Howard is always looking for good employees. And so we want our students to stay local. Most of our students at William Carey are from Mississippi. And if they can get a job local, they'll stay, and that's what we want them to do.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. So, Dr. Burnett, are you seeing more of these sorts of partnerships where the academic community at the university level in particular is starting to work more in concert with the private sector? Because it's the universities that are supposed to be training our graduates. I feel like sometimes that gets lost in some academic circles where they're more focused on particular content or curriculum or courses or majors and don't really think about, well, okay, what are the job prospects for that? Do you see this as a trend that you guys are starting to embrace here?
Well, we're embracing it, and I do see it as a trend in other places other than just at William Carey. But we are very focused on number one, seeing our students through graduation. Recruiting students is one thing, but getting them there to stay and to finish school, because you really don't want a college dropout paying off a student loan. But also you don't want a college graduate to not have a job when they get out. And so we're connecting our graduates with things that will help Mississippi, but where they can be employed. We have 2,000 students, counting our medical school, who are majoring in healthcare. They're all going to find a job because that's so needed and immediate. We have 1,500 majoring in education, K-12 education, as a teacher or school leader. We know that they're going to find a job when they get out. So connecting them with employment is a real focus of ours, and it should be for everybody.
Yeah. Well, you're right. You guys are focused on majors, on courses of study where there's no question there's significant demand, and in fact that demand exceeds the supply, and what you're trying to do is boost the supply, which is so desperately needed. And so we applaud that. Your medical program is renowned. You and I have talked about that many times. Tell us about that, Dr. Burnett. How's that going these days?
Well, they started about a week ago, our first-year students, and this is the first year, Gerard, that every class now will be at 200. We incrementally increased the class sizes over a period of about 3 or 4 years. So now we have roughly 800 students who are going to be future doctors. And so that is what Mississippi needs. More importantly than that, we focus on primary care, as you're aware, and placing them in rural areas. And we rank in the top 10 by U.S. News and World Report out of all medical schools in the country, DO and MD programs for placing doctors in rural areas and placing doctors in primary care. So we're very fortunate. We just had our grand opening of a brand new 50,000 square foot addition to the campus of Institute of Primary Care that we've built that will help accelerate the training of future doctors.
It's good to hear. It's a huge problem, as you well know, in the state of Mississippi in particular, where we have these primary care deserts, if you will. And I think in my discussions with Dr. Edney, who's of the Department of Health, who's highly focused on this issue, I think he's indicated that we have our population has the lowest percentage that have a regular assigned primary care doctor. I think they call it PCD, if I'm not mistaken. And that's a big problem in the state of Mississippi, because that's where health care begins, is with your primary care doctor, to try to identify some of these issues before they fester.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned him. Dr. Edney is a William Carey graduate, undergraduate. We didn't have a medical school when he went to medical school. But he's also on our board of trustees, and he spoke last week. And I heard you say earlier you're from Madison County.
Yeah.
To show you the need of doctors. I'm very proud that I've got a brother who's a primary care doctor in your neighboring county of Yazoo County. And, that's very, very rural. He's been there for about 35 years. So I'm very proud that I've got somebody in the family that's stepping up to do that, because it's hard to get doctors to go to those areas, state of Mississippi. But we have, since 2019, we've got about 200 doctors that are our graduates that are in rural health clinics, rural health settings across Mississippi. And that's only going to get better and larger.
Yeah. What's the enrollment look like this coming year, Dr. Burnett? How you doing?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a moving target because it's not an exact register, and they move down. We started last year, counted our, it looked like we're significantly ahead of last year. Students said we've got 2 weeks or a week to go. We're running significantly ahead of last year.
Gotcha. Well, we sort of had a bad connection, but it sounded like you said you're ahead of last year.
Yeah, we're significantly ahead, maybe several hundred students ahead of last year. So in a week and a half.
That's sort of bucking the trend, is it not, that we're seeing across the country where most of the universities and colleges are struggling with declining enrollment?
It is, and we're even bucking the trend even more because our growth in the past couple of years has been at the traditional live. We're going to be having a bit on campus, which is what we've been to Carey as a for community college and grad school, school, PT, so want to grow them from the bottom up. And so we do feel like we're bucking the trend, and I'm very proud of the team for making it happen.
Well, I think one obvious question, Dr. Burnett, is these fantastic graduates that you're turning out, are we able to keep them here in the state, at least a good majority of them?
Our research is showing that we absolutely are, especially in some majors like education. The overwhelming majority of those are staying in the state, and our nurses are staying local and staying in the state. So we're tracking that because as a native Mississippian, that's very, very important to me. And just wanted to mention real quick, Gerard, we were talking earlier about student debt, affordability, and employment after graduation. We were just last week, it was announced that Money.com ranked us #1 in Mississippi out of all 15 colleges and universities for academic quality, affordability, and employment after graduation. So very proud of my team and our students.
Should be. Congratulations. Dr. Ben Burnett, president of William Carey University. Appreciate you joining us, Dr. Burnett. We'll talk soon.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, sir. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Check it out. Let's do this. The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Now that we love, now that the lonely nights are over, how do we make love stay? Now that we know the fire can burn bright or merely smolder.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. That's the great Dan Fogelberg. Performed here back when he was in his prime. It was the City Auditorium is what it was called at the time, rather than Thalia Mara Hall, which it is today. I think that was like 74, if I'm not mistaken. So, okay, I wanted you to play that. Full disclosure here. I can actually sing that. My voice happens to be in that key. You can probably tell just hearing me talk. The problem is I can't do it and play the drums. I'm working on it, though. I can sing in his key. I can sing in Jackson Brown's key pretty well. I can sing some Eagles, Henley, and Glenn Fry. I can sing a lot of what they did as well. It's the harmonies, man, and the really high falsettos. I can do some of it. Randy Meisner, geez, is that guy off the chart or what? And you know, I can do it, but I have to be careful. I mean, I really have to strain to do it. Otherwise, that sounds terrible. But I get my wife to kind of grade it. And by the way, she's very critical and very discerning, as a wife should be. So I'm getting close. I got to master how to handle the sticks on the skins at the same time. The Eagles songs aren't that, the ones that Henley sings intentionally, aren't that terribly difficult for a decent drummer. But it's kind of fun doing all that. I mean, how talented were those guys? It just makes you appreciate it when you try to replicate it, just how good they were and how freaky they were. Really something. On the C Spire text line, I was talking about the problem with the nuclear family, and of course Gary in the Berg also weighed in as well. He says, thank you for this discussion on two-parent families. It is a huge problem in our state. We lead the nation. That's right, we do. And politicians need to put this issue front and center. I promise, Gary, I agree with you. The results would be amazing if the out-of-wedlock birth was cut in half. Thanks for your show. Your voice is critical in our state. And I've had this discussion with our legislators. It's such a sensitive subject, and I think they're often concerned about retaliation. It is more prevalent in the black community in our state. That's just fact, statistical fact. And it's an outsized portion relative to the component of the total population represented by black folks in our state. And that's not really being critical in any way. It's just pointing out what is reality, the data. But I agree with you, Gary, and I think that the messaging needs to come from people that these young folks respect, would perhaps heed to and listen to. I don't think it would be me personally. I can see how it would be, and that's fine. Or many of our legislators. But you know what? The people who represent the people we're talking about that are having these out-of-wedlock births and are not really interested in raising their children in a traditional nuclear family setting, they're the ones that need to be speaking up, in my view. The churches, the pastors in the local communities, they need to be speaking up. It's not okay. And on the C Spire text line, right behind that, someone said, you should run for governor and fix it. Well, and I asked, fix what? Out-of-wedlock births, teenage pregnancies, dissolution of the nuclear family? Yeah, I think that should be a focus of the governor's office, because I think it's at the core of most of the problems. Well, the biggest problem in our state, which is poverty. That's the biggest problem. Everything stems from that. Crime comes from that. Poor quality schools comes from that. Limited opportunity, poor infrastructure, quality of life. Overall, just have to be honest about it. It doesn't mean money solves every problem. I'm not suggesting that. But it's necessary to address many problems. Can't have good schools, good infrastructure. It's got to be spent, invested wisely and responsibly, prudently, thoughtfully, sure. But when you don't have or have a limited amount to work with, to start with, that's a problem. So this individual on the 601 says, You can't. Even when you were a teenager, says you can't fix it. Even when you were a teenager, as was I, there was always a girl or two who got pregnant during the school year. It happens. That person has the child, and now the state has to take care of that child. How can you fix that? You can't now. The option no longer exists. And don't say, oh, right to life. No, it's right to birth, then fight for life. So a couple of things I would say. Sure, I know this went on when I was in high school, a teenager, but I can't give you a single example of when I was a teenager of anybody I knew, either in my school or any other schools. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I just personally can't give an example. Nobody in my neighborhood, nobody in my school, nobody among all the friends I had in other schools. I do think it's way more prevalent, and statistically we know that, the occurrence of teenage pregnancies, certainly out of wedlock births, fatherless homes.
Teenage pregnancies are down from their high.
From their high, but not from when I was a teenager.
Right.
So, and here's the difference, in my view, is that back then, when it did happen, it was kind of shameful. And the families would step up to take care of the expecting teenager mother and the child. And often that teenager would go away to have that child, and it would be kind of something you just sort of check out for a while. Here's what happens today that I think is a problem. We celebrate it. We shower a 10th grader with all sorts of praise and parties and gifts. Oh, it's a huge thing. You're in the 10th grade. That's the problem. And you know what I think happens? Their friends see that and they're jealous. So they got to go have a baby. Am I wrong here? Am I off base here?
I mean, it's not the example for everyone, but yes, that does happen.
Okay. But society's changed in that we no longer see that as something that
the left has spent a large portion of their political capital since the 90s doing away with any shame for anything they consider right or proper.
Okay. I got it. You're right. So that's my point.
It all started with political correctness, and it's all gone downhill since.
And that's the term we used to use that has been replaced with woke, I guess you could say. But, yeah, that's been around a while. But in the 70s and 80s, I would say it was considered, that's not a good thing. Heck, even in college, in the college setting, I can't remember a girl that I knew in college that I was aware of that got pregnant while they were in college that wasn't married, by the way. And I know a lot of girls in college. Of course you do. It's a big social atmosphere.
Well, one thing the texter gets wrong is that you can't fix it. You can fix it. It's just a very unpopular fix. If you quit incentivizing bad decisions, less bad decisions are made.
I completely agree, and that is snowballed through the years. It's snowballed. It's grown. Not only that, you get condemned. It's exactly what this representative from Texas was essentially doing, and he's just parroting what Tallarico is his name. What so many of the others I've seen so many. Senator Slotkin. Schumer. Just go down the list of all these high-ranking federal-level Democrats, congressional Democrats on both sides. Everything's the fault of the billionaires. We can't have this because of the billionaires. We can't you're essentially asserting a claim to their assets. And that's just wrong. That it's a situation where we can't have Medicaid unimpeded, right? Unrestricted Medicaid. Just give it to anybody and everybody that shows up and signs a piece of paper and can fog a mirror because of the billionaires. I mean, it's such a terrible, flawed argument. But that class warfare, man, you heard in that tape we played with Tallarico from Texas. Yeah, you're right. The 1% billionaires, they're the problem. And though I'm not saying it's not a tough problem to solve here, doesn't mean I'm not willing to give it a try and focus on it because it's essential. It's critical. Coming right back.
Hey, Is everybody ready?
I'm ready.
Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Josie's on a vacation far away. Come around and talk it over. So many things that I wanna say. You know I like my girls a little bit older. I just wanna use your love tonight. I don't wanna lose your love tonight.
The outfield. Dan in Tate County says, cut the welfare, make them work, and the rate will drop. Problem is they're not qualified for hardly any jobs. That's a big, big, big problem. And that problem's going to worsen. Is we're going to leave behind those that are just not prepared to work the jobs of the future. And there's no doubt that robotics and artificial intelligence are going to change that dynamic significantly as well. Reading lots of reports coming from really smart people that are studying this and just looking at, man, some of these jobs. You've seen this. Some of these robots are taking fast food workers, right? You've seen this. It's incredible. I mean, they look like human beings, these robots that are cooking food.
Yeah, and it seems a bit silly if you boil it down, because one of the more popular videos that's gone quote-unquote viral is the Twitter AI robot that's serving popcorn at a movie theater. And it's a humanoid bipedal robot, 2 legs, 2 arms, scooping the popcorn out of the popcorn machine just like an attendant would. My question is, why don't you just put 2 arms on the popcorn machine to deliver the popcorn? Why do you have to have a humanoid-looking robot standing there doing it? It seems like a lot of wasted time and effort.
It's to enhance the experience.
Yes.
Oh, man. Yeah, it says that a lot of women they get child support from various fathers of their babies. That's true, but there are also way more that are just deadbeats that we don't have the people to chase around. It's incredible. That don't ante up, pay the child support. Still, though, that doesn't solve the problem of raising a child in a fatherless home, which is a huge problem, as Gary and the Bergs pointed out. We have 2 on the program, and that's where, once again, we're at the top of the list with 45% of the children, last time I reviewed that stat, in this state living in fatherless homes. It's a big problem. There's a robot that puts shingles on a roof. I've seen that. I mean, like Rhino was talking, these humanoid robots are impressive, to say the least. Incredible.
But all that battery power powering the servos and the gyros to keep them upright on 2 legs when they could just be 2 arms attached to a machine.
Well, I've seen the painters, too. You seen those? Those are pretty neat.
I still think the most fascinating is the giant 3D printer that just uses concrete and just prints out the walls.
Well, that's certainly possible. I saved one. I'm gonna send it to you that I caught in video that features these humanoid robots. One of them in this particular feature is a robot that is cooking eggs and is able to like delicately crack the egg shell and then release the egg into the pan there. Another one.
It's a cool proof of concept, but I mean, Asia's had machines that cracked eggs into a machine that's making fried rice for the last 20 some odd years. Like,
that's true.
It's cool proof of concept that you got a humanoid looking robot that can crack an egg, but Not really breaking new ground here with mechanical ability to crack an egg.
I agree, but I don't think those particular machines, you could order eggs done a certain way, and the machine itself would prepare it for you.
Well, no, not in that use case.
Right, but the humanoid can. So, hey, humanoid, make me an omelet. I want this, and it could do it. And so, but you're right, that technology has its roots from other use cases, other forms. Little primitive compared. It was 20 years ago compared to what we can do today, and a lot of this, of course, driven by the AI revolution. The other one that I thought was fascinating, it featured in this video, was robots unloading and loading baggage in an airplane, which is an intensely manual task, of course. That looks like you would just be worn out doing that for a day to me.
Even on the big triple-decker airliners, the space for your cargo is not a place you can really stand up in, and you got to put a whole bunch of stuff in that big long tube.
It's hard, and usually you're right. One or two of the workers are in the belly of the airplane.
Oh yeah, on all fours, just putting them in there.
That just hurts me thinking about that, because I think about how it exhausted me just getting my bags to the gate or to the ticket counter to check them in, whichever I'm doing that day. But this is incredible. Manufacturing robots as well. All of this is going to change the world. And you know who's really out front in this arena is Tesla.
Well, China would like you to believe they're out in front because they have artificial intelligence-powered robots that they're going to put on the battlefield.
I have seen that, and that is something, as you well know, that our Department of Defense is reviewing and is paying attention to.
Well, when you see the videos, yeah, the robots are kind of impressive. It's nothing that Boston Dynamics wasn't doing a decade ago.
Yeah.
But then you see their military strategy of the meat wall behind the AI robots, and it's like, yeah, y'all still are playing by the rules of the 50s, it seems.
Yeah, they hadn't quite gotten totally there yet. But there's no doubt in my mind it's coming. And we talked yesterday, I think, about the big raise that Elon Musk was able to secure from his board. And largely, this is what they're counting on. Two things they think are going to drive. Maybe three, but I think the top two are humanoid robots and autonomous vehicles, where they're doing pretty well there. And we're starting to see more mainstream adoption, but they're betting the farm on that, not selling Tesla EVs. I mean, they're going to continue to do that, but that doesn't have the upside potential.
If they can continue shrinking the power wall, that will likely be one of their biggest sellers in the mid-future.
That's true as well. And then SpaceX, the other component
because
of their strategy.
The storage of power is really the chink in the armor for the power grid. You can only produce so much because you can only take down so much, and there's nowhere for any excess to go.
Yeah. On the C-Spire text line, Kevin from Brandon says a child support scam is the mom tells the hospital she doesn't know who the father is. Then they qualify for all the government assistance. Then the mom threatens the dad to tell the state, and they get money from both. Yeah, all that's a play. That still doesn't really, I mean, to Rhino's point, though, that just, you start cutting off all those programs, perhaps, and you will see a decrease in these out-of-wedlock births, these teenage pregnancies that always have money associated with them on the other side. I do think. But I also think it's a cultural thing that we've got to get back to where, no, it's not okay to be bragging about having your fourth kid when you're 20. That's not okay. It's not okay to just keep, adding to your lineage there with more children when you barely can survive on your own, and you're facing very difficult economic situation, and you really just aren't in a good position to care for, love, nurture, develop, guide, mentor a child. It's a disservice to the child, honestly. Let's see. Yeah, probably robots cooking lab-grown burgers, says DJ and Sonnet. I'm waiting on Johnny Cab from Total Recall, says Jason and Starful. Louis from the 662 on a similar topic, and I'm near your age, related to how times have changed. I grew up in small Mississippi town, around 1,000 residents, and I distinctly remember the first divorce that occurred. It was almost considered scandalous. That's a good point, Louis. You're right. We've become conditioned to accept that as just a normal part of society, and it's not looked upon with the same sort of contempt, I guess, that it once was. I agree with you in that respect, Louis. These are just the way society's evolved, I think, in a negative way, but these are cultural issues. It's no different than something I've talked about before that I keep coming across, are all the dang cuss words and profanity and all these online videos all over social media, particularly from people on the left, and more importantly from ladies. And I use that term very loosely in this case. I guess I'm just old-fashioned, and I know you've counseled me on that, Rhino, but I still find that to be inappropriate, certainly from a public perspective. Why do you have to do that? Can't you just make your point without that? You always say it makes them feel bigger or something like that, right? We're coming right back with the final segment here on Midday. Stay with us.
It's so awesome! Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show!
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
The Who. Welcome back, everyone. Final segment today. So I know Rhino was probably hearing it during the break. I came across another one of these class warfare videos. This one produced by Representative Melanie Stansberry. I'm not even sure where she's from, what state she's from. But she's at the podium, and I can tell she's flanked by all of her Democratic colleagues
New Mexico.
there. New Mexico, okay. And once again, everything's about billionaires. They're obsessed with billionaires. They're freaking jealous and envious. And basically, she says, the system is rigged and the American people know it. After scamming the American people out of health care, food, and educational assistance 2 weeks ago to fund tax breaks and boondoggles for billionaires, Trump and the GOP are now trying to rig the system to deregulate crypto. Oh, the horror, deregulating, which Trump is cashing in on while he's in office. We're here to fight for the working people of this country. I'm so tired of this working people, working families crap because when they use it, they imply that there's people who work and they don't got nothing, and there's people who don't work and they got everything. That's basically their argument. That's horse hockey. You may not like the fact that these people created stuff that has produced enormous value for society. I know I'm beating this horse to death. They don't get that second order thinking. That they got rich because people dug into their wallet and said, I like what you sell. I'm going to buy some.
It's because they're all so weak and cowardly that risk-reward calculations terrify them.
They certainly do. They're only comfortable in their cushy little Washington bubble, protected for $174 for a year. That's fine. A lot of people
you can't
would say,
tell me any of the loudmouth bleeding hearts that go to these rallies or protests or anything actually have a job.
Oh, no,
or
of course
productive
not.
members of society.
That's exactly right. Of course not. But they're
all mentally ill wastes of oxygen.
And excoriating, denouncing, again, those who have. But exactly how have billionaires rigged the economy? I just shared with you, and this is not my data. This is from sources. More millionaires ever created last year. I just talked about a 24-year. They got a 224-year-old got a $265 million a year job offer. How's that rigged? Did he rig it?
Well, you got to remember, these are the same people that if they heard the phrase economies of scale, they would think, oh, that's an evil incantation from a rich businessman.
That's right.
So they have no concept of reality.
You know, I just want to say to these people, you don't like billionaires? Don't shop at Walmart. Unplug from the internet. Quit buying stuff from Amazon. I could go down the list of all the billionaires. Of course, they still live of an era, a bygone era of decades and decades ago, where a lot of people that had wealth, massive wealth, inherited it. And we still have that today. But if you go look at the list of the richest people in this country, they didn't inherit it. That list is dwindled. All the people that are on the top of that list now created their wealth, invented it. You may not like, and I don't like his politics, Bill Gates, but you can't deny that the guy created stuff that we all use. You can't deny it. And anybody out there thinks, well, I'm not using Microsoft. Yeah, you are.
Did he create it or did he buy it and put his name on it?
He went and paid. I've told the story before. It's the greatest ROI business transaction ever. He spent $50,000.
Was it Xerox?
No,
developed
not.
They were the ones with the mouse.
The mouse. We call it the Winchester disk drive. The graphical user interface, the personal computer, the mouse, Ethernet. A guy named Bob Metcalf. I think I told you I met the guy back in the 90s. He invented Ethernet. He started a company called 3Com. But Gates, you're right, he bought an operating system from just a starving programmer downtown Seattle. It was called QDOS. And the Q in software parlance, if you kind of take the shortcut to create software that's not really good for the long term and difficult to maintain and support, we call that quick and dirty, QD. And his software, his operating system was called QDOS, quick and dirty operating system. Gates goes up, gives him $50,000, and he turned that into the fortune that he owns today because he went back and said, hey, IBM, I got you an operating system. That's a fascinating story. But you have to give it to Gates for
he risked
$50,000
at a time when $50,000 was a lot of money.
And he had the wherewithal to understand, how he could parlay that into a fortune and solve a problem. IBM was looking for an operating system, didn't have time to develop it. We are out of here today. Enjoyed it so much. Back with you tomorrow. Stay safe and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.